That morning, I turned on my phone like any other day. My coffee was still hot, and with one hand I tapped on that familiar blue paper airplane icon on the screen. The message I sent to my friend group would not go through. Then the work group. Then even the notification channels. Everything was eerily silent. Huh, is the internet lagging? That is what I thought at first. But Facebook and YouTube were running just fine. Only Telegram sat there, lifeless, as if it had lost its connection to the world. Of course, I was not the only one. Millions of people realized it at the same time. Something was happening with Telegram. And just minutes later, the news became official. The government was taking steps to block Telegram's operations within the country. An app that had been widely loved suddenly became a national security concern. What had happened? Why had a messaging platform become the focal point of global debates? And Telegram, a symbol of freedom in the digital space, was it now drifting into a gray zone between ideals and reality? The journey of that little paper airplane turned out to have far more twists than anyone imagined. And this story is not just about an app. It is about the collision between privacy, freedom of speech, and cybersecurity in the digital age. 1. What is Telegram? Telegram was created in 2013 by two Russian brothers, Pavel Durov and Nikolai Durov. One was a genius programmer, the other, a rebellious thinker. Before Telegram, they had built VKontakte, the largest social network in Russia. But both of them left their homeland after refusing to hand over user data to the government. Carrying with them an unwavering devotion to freedom, they laid the foundation for a messaging app that was fast, secure, and above all, would never bow to any government. And so Telegram was born. Unlike other traditional messaging apps, Telegram did not stop at simply connecting people through text and images. It was an entire open ecosystem. A place where you could send files up to 2 gigabytes, storing an entire library of documents like a portable drive. A place where you could create groups of up to 200,000 members, or launch broadcast channels reaching millions of followers. A place with tens of thousands of bots, allowing you to customize support for everything from booking plane tickets to trading cryptocurrency. And also a place where you could have completely secret conversations, thanks to the secret chat feature with end-to-end encryption. To put it in perspective, Telegram's empire was like an underground social network, where information moved fast, was uncensored, and left no trace if the user wished it so. That is exactly why people loved it. From crypto investors and IT professionals to scholarship-hunting students and learning communities that spread all across Telegram. But that is also exactly why bad actors began finding their way in. Imagine building a city of freedom, with no police, no cameras, no fences. Talented people come to live there. But smugglers, scammers, and extremists naturally cannot pass up that opportunity either. Telegram grew up in that intersection, between the light of freedom and the shadow of lawlessness. 2. The journey from a dorm room to 1 billion users. It was not born in Silicon Valley. It was not backed by venture funds worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Strangely enough, Telegram was born from a journey of escape. In 2013, Pavel Durov, the founder of VKontakte, often called the Facebook of Russia, refused to hand over user data and shut down opposition groups at the request of the Russian government. Tensions escalated, and just months later, Durov left Russia, surrendering VK to those under state control. Leaving with Durov was his younger brother, Nikolai Durov, a brilliant programmer and mathematician who had won gold medals for years at the International Olympiad in informatics and earned his doctorate at a remarkably young age. The two brothers embarked on a new project, building a messaging platform immune to censorship, protecting privacy at all costs, not driven by profit, and refusing to cooperate with any government at all. That was the starting point of Telegram. Telegram debuted in August 2013 on iOS, and shortly after on Android. Although it was not the only platform offering encrypted messaging, Telegram made its mark with Secret Chat, a feature using end-to-end encryption with the ability to automatically destroy messages after a set time. On top of that, its multi-device synchronization, large file transfers, zero advertising, and especially the fact that it did not require users to provide personal information, quickly made the app stand out at a time when users were increasingly losing trust in big tech companies like Facebook and Google. By 2014, Telegram had reached 50 million users. By 2016, that number surpassed 100 million, and the platform was processing over 15 billion messages per day. Without a big advertising budget, without paying influencers or key opinion leaders, Telegram grew purely on its core values. Users spread the word among themselves. This was a clean app, secure and free. However, freedom always comes with a price. From the very beginning, Telegram was flagged by multiple governments as a safe haven for extremist organizations. In 2015, Telegram was forced to remove dozens of propaganda channels run by the terrorist organization ISIS, after being accused of being the primary platform used by the group to distribute materials, recruit members, and coordinate operations. The tensions continued to escalate. In 2017, Indonesia blocked Telegram, especially the web version, after discovering numerous public channels linked to terrorism in the Bahasa Indonesia language. In 2018, Russia officially banned Telegram because the company refused to hand over encryption keys to the Federal Security Service, known as the FSB. That same year, Iran followed suit, citing Telegram's use in organizing protests and spreading content deemed illegal. Yet in all of those places, Telegram never truly disappeared. Users continued using it through VPNs. Activists kept relying on the app as their only means to bypass censorship. Even in Russia, where Telegram was technically blocked, government agencies themselves used Telegram to communicate with citizens, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic that ravaged the country. But it was not until 2021 that Telegram truly stepped onto the global stage. Early that year, WhatsApp, the world's leading messaging app, found itself embroiled in a data scandal when it announced changes to its privacy policy involving data sharing with its parent company, Facebook. Tens of millions of people grew alarmed, and within just 72 hours, Telegram gained over 25 million new users, a number unprecedented in the messaging app industry. Throughout January 2021, more than 100 million new users flocked to the platform. Telegram downloads peaked at nearly 95 million that month. From an app considered niche, used mainly within the tech community, Telegram officially became a global mainstream platform. The years that followed witnessed relentless expansion. In 2022, Telegram reached 700 million monthly active users and launched Telegram Premium for the first time, offering enhanced features such as 4 GB file uploads, exclusive stickers, and faster download speeds. In 2023, Telegram integrated new features like Stories, which are self-deleting posts, mini apps, which are third-party applications embedded within Telegram, and the Toncoin cryptocurrency wallet. By mid-2024, Telegram was approaching 950 million users, surpassing even WeChat globally, second only to WhatsApp and Messenger. Riding this momentum and serving its massive user base, Telegram was no longer just a messaging app. It had gradually transformed into a multifunctional super app, a messaging tool, a social network, a news distribution platform, an educational tool, and even a digital wallet and gateway to blockchain games. All of this within just over a decade. But it was precisely at this moment, as Telegram approached 1 billion users and began generating revenue from commercial services, that the contradiction between Durov's ideals and reality became more apparent than ever. Telegram was loved by hundreds of millions for its security and lack of censorship. But for that very reason, it also became the promised land for cybercriminals, extremist content, and cross-border fraud. From Russia, Iran, and France to Brazil, and now Vietnam, governments began demanding that Telegram cooperate. Otherwise, the relationship would have to end. Why was this happening? And was this an isolated incident, or a sign of a trend forming across the entire world? 3. Two sides of the same coin. Telegram's success did not come from advertising, nor from flashy marketing campaigns. It came from trust, or at least the feeling, that this was one of the last spaces on the internet where people could communicate without being watched, share without being censored, and remain anonymous if they wished. Yet it was precisely that freedom that kept Telegram standing on the line between two identities, a symbol of digital freedom and a platform that tolerated serious legal and ethical risks. In the eyes of hundreds of millions of users around the world, Telegram was a powerful media platform, not just for messaging, but but for seeking truth in a landscape where other social networks were being suffocated by censorship. In 2020, amid the wave of protests in Belarus against an election widely accused of being rigged, when all independent media had been silenced, social networks blocked, and internet bandwidth throttled, millions of Belarusian citizens turned to Telegram as an information lifeline. A single channel called Nexta, run by a group of exiled journalists, became the command center of the resistance movement, updating protest locations, warning of crackdowns, and calling on the international community to pay attention to the situation inside the country. The channel reached over 2 million followers in just a few weeks, despite the government's attempts to block access everywhere. In Hong Kong, during the period of 2019 to 2020, Telegram became the primary tool for protesters in their fight to protect freedoms against the controversial extradition law. Thanks to features allowing large group creation, information encryption, and instant sharing, Telegram enabled tens of thousands of citizens to coordinate responses, avoid arrest, and spread footage of the crackdowns. During the Russia-Ukraine armed conflict, Telegram became the official communication channel for both sides of the war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky updated the war situation daily through Telegram. Intelligence agencies, media outlets, and ordinary civilians all used the platform to transmit information almost instantly. In Vietnam, Telegram did not carry the heavy political weight seen in those hotspots, but it still played an important role for specialized communities. In the tech world, cryptocurrency investing, programming, startups, and even within businesses, Telegram was favored for simple reasons. It was lightweight, fast, free of ads, non-intrusive, and allowed the creation of large groups or the management of content broadcast channels. Communities on Telegram generally operated more flexibly than Facebook, with greater anonymity and fewer visibility restrictions. It was precisely that flexibility that earned Telegram its affectionate nickname, the free territory of the Internet. However, no space of freedom is absolute. When nothing is controlled, good and bad grow equally. Along with its title as the Fortress of Privacy, Telegram was increasingly associated with another label, the paradise of cybercrime. And this was not without reason. Unlike WhatsApp, owned by Meta, or iMessage, made by Apple, Telegram did not enable end-to-end encryption by default. Yet it allowed users to create accounts without real identities, without SIM verification, and with the ability to wipe all data with a single tap. With the capacity to create groups of up to 200,000 members, build automated bots, and launch unlimited public channels, Telegram became an ideal platform, not only for healthy communities, but also for forces operating outside the law. Since 2015, terrorist organizations like ISIS had been using Telegram to recruit, distribute training materials, and spread extremist propaganda. In 2016, Telegram was forced to delete over 78 channels linked to ISIS after pressure from the international community. But that was merely the tip of the iceberg. In France, in 2024, law enforcement uncovered a wave of Telegram groups openly selling drugs, weapons, and child sexual abuse material. The situation was so severe that Pavel Durov, the founder of Telegram, was summoned for investigation and held for 4 days in Paris. On August 28, he was charged with 12 offenses, including complicity in distributing child exploitation content, drug trafficking, money laundering, and refusing to cooperate with investigators. He was released on bail of €5 million, banned from leaving France, and required to report to police twice a week. This was an unprecedented case in the history of major technology platforms. A CEO held criminally responsible for content on the platform he created. In Brazil, on April 26, 2023, a federal judge in the state of Espírito Santo ordered the temporary nationwide suspension of Telegram because the platform failed to provide information requested by the federal police about extremist and neo-fascist groups using the app to incite violence in schools. In India, one of the most populous markets in the world, Telegram was the platform of choice for many cybercriminal organizations. From distributing pirated content to orchestrating cross-border fraud, Telegram was considered nearly impossible to regulate because its data typically left no trace. And the next country to put Telegram on the scoreboard was none other than Vietnam. 4. The drama in Vietnam. What is happening? On May 23, 2025, an image of an official document issued by the Authority of Telecommunications under Vietnam's Ministry of Information and Communications, sent to major domestic telecom carriers, began circulating on social media. The document required telecommunications companies to implement measures blocking access to Telegram, with a deadline to report results by June 2, 2025. This was no longer a rumor. On the late evening of May 25th, even before the deadline arrived, Telegram was officially and comprehensively blocked. This decision did not come from impulse. It was the result of a prolonged investigation and assessment led primarily by the Department of Cybersecurity and High-Tech Crime Prevention, known as A05, under the Ministry of Public Security. According to published statistics, as of early 2025, Telegram had approximately 9,600 active channels and groups operating in Vietnam. Among them, authorities reported that up to 68% contained toxic content that violated the law or posed potential threats to national security. Beyond content-level evaluation, the authorities identified specific violations. Groups and channels spreading anti-state propaganda, sharing inciting content, distorting the truth, and organizing illegal political activities. Large-scale financial fraud, conducted through schemes promising super profits, disguised multi-level marketing, and fraudulent cryptocurrency transactions, with estimated damages exceeding 1 trillion Vietnamese dong and more than 13,000 victims. Illegal sale of personal data, including national ID information, phone numbers, permanent addresses, and bank account details, affecting up to 23 million Vietnamese citizens, equivalent to nearly the entire working-age population. Additionally, there were activities involving the sharing of harmful content related to drugs, child exploitation, weapons, and criminal tools. The critical turning point that made the situation so grave, according to the Ministry of Public Security, was this: Telegram refused to cooperate. In numerous cases, authorities had sent legal requests asking Telegram to provide user data for investigations. However, none of those requests received a response. Telegram also had no representative office, no legal representative, and no official point of contact in Vietnam, in violation of the newly issued Decree 147/2024, which requires cross-border platforms operating in Vietnam to register, declare, and comply with obligations to handle violating content in coordination with authorities. This placed Telegram in direct confrontation with the domestic legal system. While major platforms like Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube had faced disputes but maintained operations by having representatives who cooperated on content moderation, Telegram had shut down all official channels of contact. Not only was it non-compliant, Telegram had become an ideal environment for escalating violations, precisely because of the very features it had once promoted: anonymous messaging, encryption, no long-term storage, self-destructing messages, and no user verification. From Telegram's side, after the news spread across the media, on May 23, 2025, a Telegram spokesperson responded to the international press, saying the company was very surprised by the request to block its operations in Vietnam. Telegram's side claimed they had responded on time to previous legal requests and were reviewing the procedures for service registration under the new regulations. However, information from the Ministry of Information and Communications painted a very different picture. Telegram had not submitted service registration information, had not provided a point of contact, had not responded to previous official documents, and had ignored requests to handle violating content, even when accompanied by evidence and specific demands. This time, under public pressure and the risk of being blocked, Telegram sent a notice saying it would seriously consider and cooperate. But as of the end of May, there was no concrete evidence that the platform had actually changed its operations in the Vietnamese market. The strong-handed move by the Vietnamese government received mixed reactions from the public. A portion of public opinion believed that tightening regulation of Telegram was necessary, given the widespread fraud, data leaks, and offensive content. Many who had been victims in investment opportunity groups on Telegram shared their experiences of losing money with no way to trace the perpetrators. However, many others raised the question, does blocking an app actually solve the root of the problem? Or does it simply push users to other platforms, or even drive criminal activity deeper underground, where monitoring becomes even harder? Tech experts also warned of a familiar scenario: block it, and VPNs will rise again. Because the majority of Telegram users in Vietnam were young, tech-savvy, and could easily bypass the block using proxies or support applications. On the international front, organizations monitoring internet freedom held differing views. Some assessed that Vietnam was following the common trend of many countries in demanding cross-border platforms comply with national laws, similar to the way the European Union is enforcing its Digital Services Act, known as the DSA. 5. What future awaits Telegram? After more than a decade of existence, Telegram has come a long way, from a messaging app built by two programmer brothers living in exile to a communication platform for nearly 1 billion people around the world. But the larger it grows, the harder the questions become. How to maintain its original ideals in a world that increasingly demands transparency, accountability, and legal cooperation? What is happening in Vietnam, as well as what previously occurred in Russia, Iran, Brazil, and France, is no longer a series of isolated incidents. It is a clear sign that Telegram is entering a new phase, a phase where, like every global platform, it must choose between expanding legal cooperation with governments around the world or accepting being shut out of potential markets. Two paths lie ahead. The first path: Telegram could choose strategic compromise. This does not mean completely abandoning its philosophy of protecting privacy. Rather, it means establishing a minimum response mechanism, similar to what it did with Indonesia, where Telegram quickly removed channels flagged for terrorism and sent a team to work directly with the government, resulting in the ban being lifted after just 1 week. This is the path many major platforms have chosen, including companies that once started with an anti-censorship manifesto. Google, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all of them once faced strong pushback from governments in many countries, but gradually established mechanisms of just enough compliance to maintain their global operations. If Telegram were to go down this path, it would need to establish legal departments and regional representatives, especially in countries with distinct legal systems such as Vietnam, India, Brazil, or European nations. Accept removing or restricting certain content that violates local laws, while keeping most of its encryption technology intact. Communicate more transparently with governments and the media to avoid being perceived as ignoring the law, as in the recent case in Vietnam. This path would allow Telegram to continue existing in major markets, expanding features like digital wallets, mini apps, or blockchain integration, but it would also mean accepting the role of being part of the system rather than an outsider. The second path: Telegram could hold firm to its current stance: no cooperation with any government, no legal representation, no adjustments to individual countries' laws. This philosophy once helped Telegram become a symbol of resistance against censorship, attracting millions of users seeking free space online. However, reality has shown that the price of this choice is growing larger by the day, being blocked or having access restricted in multiple countries, leading to lost users, revenue, and business opportunities. Facing financial and legal penalties, such as the case of CEO Pavel Durov being summoned and detained in France in 2024 for refusing to cooperate in investigating cybercriminal groups. Being unable to deploy financial features, like the Toncoin wallet, in key markets, due to violations of anti-money laundering regulations, identity verification requirements, and consumer protection laws. Telegram currently operates on a hybrid financial model, relying on Pavel Durov's personal contributions, community fundraising, and more recently, the Telegram Premium service. However, to sustain and expand an infrastructure serving billions of users worldwide, the platform will need a more sustainable business model, something inseparable from legal compliance in key countries. But looking at the past few years, Telegram has quietly shifted from a closed app to a multifunctional technology platform, with ambitions of becoming the first Web3 super app. They have launched the Toncoin wallet, integrating the TON blockchain, short for the Open Network, originally founded by Telegram and later transferred to the Community for Independent Development. Enabled the development of mini apps, third-party applications that can run directly within Telegram's interface, similar to WeChat's model in China. Rolled out monetization tools for content creators, building a new ecosystem for online business communities, education, and creative work. With this direction, Telegram is moving closer to a model combining social network, commercial platform, and integrated financial application. But to develop that model legitimately and sustainably, Telegram must build trust not only with users, but also with national legal systems. A fully free and uncontrollable Telegram may continue to exist in a niche market. But if it wants to become a universal platform for billions of people, from students, journalists, and businesses to governments, then Telegram will have to choose a position within the global digital power ecosystem. 6. In closing, where will the paper airplane fly? Telegram was built on a simple belief. People have the right to communicate without being surveilled. That belief carried two Russian programmer brothers across borders, against the current of politics, and led them to write one of the most fascinating and unusual stories of the modern internet. Is there any other app that runs no ads, does not exploit data, does not easily compromise with governments, and yet has become the trusted home of hundreds of millions of people? But ideals, no matter how beautiful, cannot avoid colliding with harsh reality. When an app becomes the communication infrastructure for nearly 1 billion people, including both human rights activists and cybercriminals, the question is no longer what you believe in, but how you take responsibility. Freedom of information cannot exist outside the law, but the law also cannot turn a blind eye to the increasingly urgent need for privacy in a world digitized to its very core. Telegram, through all the debates, bans, and praise, is becoming a symbol of an era defined by the conflict between technology and governance. The story in Vietnam, with its alarming numbers on fraud, data leaks, and harmful content, is a reminder that a good platform cannot be a safe haven for evil. But taking strong action against a platform must also come with transparent governance, sustainable technological solutions, and open dialogue. Otherwise, every effort will be nothing more than a game of cat and mouse in an increasingly complex digital world. And finally, users, all of us, cannot stand on the sidelines. Between freedom and chaos, between control and protection, every individual has a role in shaping the online space they participate in. An app cannot make all the moral choices on behalf of its users, but it can, and must, take responsibility for the architecture it has built.
This was Capricorn Psychology. Patient minds, ancient questions, until the stars align again.